What does the future of collaboration look like? Well, I would never have thought that it would be me talking about collaboration on a stage, since I used to be the worst collaborator ever. I was the type of kid who told the other kids what their Barbie dolls should say. And even in high school, I was the girl who hoarded all the work for team projects. You know her, that was me. The truth is, I learned to collaborate the hard way. Because last year, after 2 years of working as a copywriter, I became a creative content director at Happiness Brussels. It's a lovely agency I work at in Belgium, which is an FCB alliance. It was a new role and it was a new department within the agency, and so I had to start from a blank canvas. I had to build my own team, I had to define my own way of working, and it's safe to say that I ran into the walls a couple of times. And in the next 5 minutes, I'd love to share with you some of my key learnings. Learnings that I would implement immediately if I had to start from scratch. Let me start by saying that collaboration as an idea gets most people on board, but making it happen is actually really hard. When I started out in my new role, I quickly noticed that my you do this, you do that Barbie approach wouldn't work. You have to be empathetic. You have to constantly try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's often said that you should treat others the way you want to be treated. But in the past year, I found out that it's even better if you treat others the way they want to be treated. You should take some time to think about the individuals within your team and then act in a way that is tailored to how that person wants to be treated. Because it's by being empathetic that you build trust. And trust is the glue that holds together any group. Team members need to feel safe in order to speak up, be vulnerable, and take risks. My second piece of advice would be to dare to rethink teams. When I started the content cell at Happiness, I couldn't just copy-paste the existing processes of the creative department, since the content projects often had different lead times, other disciplines were needed, so I just forgot what I knew and built my own team. And this is what my team looks like today. You could see it as a three-party between content, strategy, and media, and we work together on all fronts rather than in silos. It actually started out as an experiment, but you'd be amazed what happens when you steer away from the linear, classical way of working and steer away from the classical copywriter AD teams to more hybrid teams. You'll notice that each team member or each discipline brings its strength to the table. We complement each other rather than replicate each other. It's really a 1 + 1 is 3 scenario. Teams with cognitive and personality diversity will balance each other out. You'll have more ideas, you'll have richer ideas faster. Number 3, wage war on complexity. First of all, by having a common language. In order to collaborate efficiently, you need to speak the same language. Otherwise, you risk evaluating ideas based on subjective arguments such as, I don't like it. But it's really hard to counter an, I don't like it. That's why at FCB, we use a scale, which we call the never finished scale. We all know this scale internally when we discuss ideas and review it, but our clients too know the scale. And it makes working together a lot easier, because every time an idea is presented, we use it to evaluate it. Of course, there is no one right language. The scale is ingrained within the FCB philosophy, but whether it's a scale, a checklist, a playbook, whatever, just make sure that you have a common language when you talk about ideas. Also, don't be busy, be productive. I think it's amazing how every morning we drive to work, spend hours in traffic, go and sit in the same building, and then write emails to each other. It makes no sense. Your colleagues are right there, so get up, talk to each other. And also, there are so many tools that help you collaborate more efficiently. Whether it's Slack, Microsoft Teams, Trello, whatever, use them. No, or rather, pick one and then use that one. And last but not least, my last piece of advice would be to unleash your inner Martha Stewart. Because a workplace should be more than just a set of desks, chairs, and meeting rooms. You want your building to inspire people, to promote collaboration. And that's where Martha gets in. Because you want to think twice about how you decorate the place. Have an open door policy. Have some cozy places where people will want to sit together and talk to each other. Put some quotes on the wall. Have some plants. Your office layout is also a way to communicate the company values. For instance, at Happiness, we believe that creativity should always have a purpose, that you should not only be in it for the awards. That's why we don't have a display cabinet in the lobby with our awards, but instead we got crafty, We unleashed our own Martha Stewart, and we turned our awards into hat tricks as a constant reminder that creativity should always serve a purpose. But fostering collaboration goes beyond the obligatory foosball table. You can also install initiatives that change behavior, like we did with Fika. Fika is a Swedish custom, and basically it means have coffee. Every day at 6 o'clock sharp, 4 o'clock sharp, the BC Boys start playing at our agency. We all go downstairs, we have some tea, have some coffee, we have some cake, and it's often during Fika that unplanned collaborations happen. So, time for a quick recap. If you were given the chance for a total reboot and you were looking for ways to foster collaboration, my advice would be to build trust through empathy, dare to rethink your teams, wage war on complexity, and unleash your inner Martha Stewart. If you want to talk more about collaboration, then let's have some Fika together. And now I will hand over the mic, which I won't have to do because you are wearing a headset, to Shanaz, who will talk a bit about the importance of inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lucy. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So, hi. My name is Shanaz Ahmed, and I am Senior Designer at Liberty, a youth-led creative network based in Brixton, London. I'm a member of the CETB Alumni, as you know. I founded Knit Aid, a social initiative that empowers refugees through knitting. I'm also a mum. I could speak about all of those things for quite a long time, but as we have limited time today, I'm going to be telling you about a topic that's close to my heart, where I want to see a better future in our industry, and that's inclusion. So, what does the future of our industry look like when everyone is included? Well, we create the best work that reaches our audiences authentically. We are made up of people from a variety of backgrounds and walks of life, ethnicities, beliefs, political viewpoints, socioeconomic backgrounds, different types of disabilities, different genders and sexualities. We create and reward the best work we've ever made in the history of our industry. We make more money as a result. Including everyone makes business sense. We'll be reaching more people authentically and in return making more money. And quite frankly, in a moral sense, it makes for a fairer industry. The types of people that are able to succeed in this industry aren't just from a very specific demographic. So we all know that, right? And I think it's safe to say that we all want that. And there's been a lot of talk in recent years. In fact, there's been a lot of talk about there being too much talk and not enough action. There have been colossal mistakes where the causes are deep-rooted in the lack of diversity in our industry. So we're not quite there yet. In fact, we're pretty far away from being there. 7.1% of senior roles are taken by black and ethnic minority people, where the target is actually over double that at 15%. Earlier this year, an IPA census revealed that there's actually been a decline in female leaders and people from minority backgrounds in the creative industry. And when we hear facts where foreign-sounding names on CVs receive half the responses as Western-sounding names, we realize we all have unconscious biases that need addressing urgently. So it's not looking that great right now. But the positive is that the only way for our future is up. And I do believe that in all the discomfort of the last few years, the awkward and uncomfortable conversations that we've all been having around inclusion and diversity, there is an appetite to do better. Imagine how many solutions there are to creative problems that we haven't solved yet, because not everyone is at the table. In fact, my lovely friend, Suleiman Khan, founder of Disability, is doing a talk tomorrow here at Eurobest at 4 p.m., where he'll be talking about the untapped opportunities in the disabled community. He'll be expanding on how the annual disposable income of people with disabilities globally is over $8 trillion. There are untapped opportunities we haven't discovered yet, because as a majority, we don't live those experiences. And we aren't including those people in the conversation from the very top all the way down. So there is just so much yet for us to discover, and that's really exciting. So how do we get there? There are many ways for us to create a more inclusive industry, but here are my top 5 that from personal experience I would like to see more of. So firstly, compulsory unconscious bias training across all agencies, across all levels. We all have unconscious biases, they're deep-rooted in us, and we do it without even noticing. So we must recognize them in order to address them. Number 2, hire junior talent through apprentice schemes. So at Liberty, we run a scheme called Digify. We take the brightest and best 18 to 25-year-olds, all from black and ethnic minority backgrounds, and put them through a paid 2-month training within Liberty. So during that time, they get a taster for everything they need to know about our industry. We then put them in 6-month paid placement programs within top agencies and top brands. Digify is a sort of incubator and accelerator to get the best black and ethnic minority talent in your agencies. There are others out there, so sign up to them, take in the talent. I promise you they will make your agency significantly better. The young people on our Digify cohorts are some of the most talented people I've come across. Number 3, retain diverse talent and create and nurture safe spaces. So once we've got that diverse talent in our teams, we must work to retain them. And one of the key ways to do this is by empowering them to share their voice in spaces they feel safe to do so. Minorities spend a lot of their life silencing and editing themselves to fit in. So creating or allowing the creation of small communities and networks specifically for certain lived experiences are really important. There are many outside of agencies set up and run by minorities. Where am I? But there's a different type of empowerment when your boss at work encourages and helps you build groups and networks specific to your lived experience. I think the simplest way to explain this is when we have women-only groups, a safe space to discuss what it's like to be in the minority as a woman in our industry. This safe space is exactly the same for ethnic minorities, or black people, or black women, or disabled people, or disabled black women. You get the gist. Don't be threatened by this. It is needed, so let's help make them and keep them. Number 4, celebrate and champion diverse talent. So off the back of the previous point, let's really celebrate and champion the people in your agencies that are in the minority. In a world where microaggressions are an everyday occurrence for most minorities, being celebrated for having a unique perspective makes people feel like they have a place here. And lastly, hire diverse talent from the top down. So if we can't see it at the top, it's much, much harder to be it. And if you don't know what that feels like, just trust us on that. We must see diverse leaders at the top paving the way for us. One of the worst things that could happen is to lose our future leaders through seeing lack of representation at leadership level. What we want them to feel is, if they have a seat at the table, then it means maybe I will one day too, and I'll stick around to make sure that happens. So talking of leadership, I'm going to hand over to Hannah, who's going to tell you a little bit about what the future of leadership looks like. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, this is kind of bright up here. Okay. My name's Hannah Johnson, and I'm a senior copywriter at a digital agency called La Red in Germany. But I wasn't always a senior copywriter. I wasn't born to be a copywriter. In fact, I studied politics. And after I graduated politics, I decided that I wanted to start my own business. So I had an idea, I pitched it to business partners, I built it up, and suddenly, almost overnight, I became a leader. And I had no clue what leadership really is, but I was improvising, deciding, just learning on the go, and over a couple of years, I built up a couple of products, like the first student lifestyle magazine, a content customizable student news website, and I loved it. I loved building this small team because I was on eye level with everyone who was working with me. And then the epitome of my dodgy dot-com career started, and the 2008 credit crisis came. And suddenly my booming business went to credit crunchies overnight. I had to start from scratch. I was suddenly felt I'd failed. I was looking into the abyss. I'd failed my team. I'd failed my investors. And there was nothing left for me now. I was destined for a life of mediocrity. So I applied for a few jobs and landed in advertising because it seemed to be the only industry that loved a failure like me. So cut to today, and I'm now a senior copywriter at La Red. Now, being a senior is a bit like being a teenager. On the one hand, you've got the adults making all the decisions. At the table, you're not really allowed to be involved. On the other hand, you've got the kids who are working around the clock to get it going with you. And everyone is basically concentrated to get it done. And bad leadership, your whole team turns into a moody bunch of teenagers. They look at you blank, what? I don't want to. A good leadership, the same team of highly talented creatives becomes something full of untapped potential, ready to develop, grow into something exciting. And I'm also working on innovative projects, and if being a senior is like being a teenager, then working on innovative projects is like having sex for the first time. You're sort of done all your research, you know exactly what's going on, you've read all the books, looked at all the diagrams, but when you get there, you're fumbling around in the dark, somewhere between perfect ecstasy and complete and utter public embarrassment. So if everyone's fumbling around in the dark, like you are all the time in these innovative projects, how can you lead at all? Well, one thing's for sure, you can no longer lead with knowledge. So make imagination your friend in the darkness. I'd have a small task for you this morning, and you're probably very tired, so you'll enjoy to just close your eyes for a second. And picture a project, the agency, the briefing that you're working on, and picture the vision. Do you see something there? If yes, spread it with your team like a virus. If not, then go back to the drawing board and really develop that, because having a vision is the most important thing. If you don't have a vision, it's dangerous. You're all on a ship with no captain. You're changing directions all the time, left, right. People are burning, trying to reach their final point, but they're burning out. They don't have the energy. Give them a vision, and they can finally come to where they want to go, and hopefully you'll end up at the Bahamas, not a Middle Eastern war zone, or Oxford Circus at Christmas time. And if you are going to be an expert in one thing, then make that expertise how to fail. A good leader stays calm under pressure. They know what to deal with, and every failure takes you to the limit of what you're actually experiencing. A recent study said that the influence of power is like a traumatic brain injury. This is insane. How can power be like a traumatic brain injury? You become more impulsive, less risk-averse, and you become less empathetic. You cannot become less empathetic as a leader. So there has to be a solution to this. And in my opinion, that's feedback. If you've failed or if you've made a mistake, get honest feedback from your team. Find out where it went wrong. Get their opinion. Get your own opinion and work together to make sure that next time it happens differently. Call it some kind of humbleness training, an approach to failure. And if you're going to be one thing as a leader, be the conductor of the culture that you want to develop. It's so easy as a leader or as a creative director to criticize. You get 20 ideas a day. If you're in full flow, it's too big, it's too small, it's just right. But no, it's off-breathing. You don't know where to go. At the end, you're tearing away ideas, throwing them in the trash can, along with a lot of broken creative egos, and nobody needs that. People need to be motivated and working. So a recent Harvard study actually said that people need 6-to-1 ratio of positive to negative feedback if they're actually going to thrive in their creative environment. Focus on the good things. Don't tear the ideas apart. Set yourself the challenge to turn it around and make something out of it. And if you make it your mission as a leader to basically put the needs and motivation of your team as first, then they will be in a position to motivate and inspire others and move forward with their briefings. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me? Raise your hand. Good. Awesome. So I am Jackie Jo Hannon. I am from Australia. I sometimes swear. I apologize. I will try and control myself because I think it's not even only just past 10 a.m. in the morning. I'm from AMV BBDO, and I am a senior art producer, which means I commission photography and illustration for print campaigns. And I'm also the recent founder of, like, maybe 2 weeks of Equal Lens, which is creating new and equal opportunities for female photographers in advertising. So, making great creative agencies of the future starts with us as individuals. And obviously, we've all talked about what we can do as a massive group, but actually, a lot of this can start here today with me. Not me, but you and I, if you know what I mean. So, approximately, and I only just found out this fact recently, and actually I found it quite fascinating, because approximately 1 in 4 people in the UK will experience a mental health problem each year, such as anxiety and depression. Now, I appreciate a lot of us are not from the UK, so maybe this isn't the case for you, lucky you. But here in the UK, 1 in 4. That means in a UK agency, if there's 200 people in the agency, 50 of them could be suffering from depression and anxiety. And that's an actual huge amount. So how are we expected to be good collaborators, good leaders, be inclusive, be great sorry, I have dyslexia of the mouth. Role models if we can't look after us when so many of us are suffering in silence? Last night at 1 a.m., I sat up in bed and I was like, cortisol. I don't know if you know what that is. Do you? Cortisol is the hormone that releases fear and stress. And that's exactly what I had in that moment thinking about today. And what's happening in today's day is a lot of us are releasing a whole lot of this cortisol that's unnecessary during the day. We're getting fear and stress. And this used to be that fight, fear kind of thing when we were sort of in that caveman time. We need to run away from lions. And now in this digital age, it's almost sabotaging us because we're releasing much more of this hormone than we need, which is what keeps us sort of awake late at night, or what wakes us up in the middle of the night, which is often what's causing a lot of these depression problems. So what can we do to kind of battle this? And I think it's really important to think about that, because sometimes I wonder what's going on with me, and all I've got is too much of this hormone suffering and going through my brain like right now. So this is me. This is me as a teenager. Now, as you can see, this is obviously someone who doesn't know how to wash their hair, who has mild acne, cranky, and probably hasn't lost their virginity yet. But it doesn't mean this is the reason that I sometimes suffer from low self-worth. Sometimes, and I'm sure many of you might be able to relate, or if you don't, then awesome, you're very lucky. But sometimes I don't feel lovable enough. I feel this pit of emptiness inside which tells me I'm not good enough. So then try getting up and standing on a stage and doing this. So if we sometimes, a lot of us can suffer from this low self-worth, I tried to find some sort of tips so I can bring myself back to that self-worth. Because if I can love myself, then I can be a better leader, a better collaborator, and I can be more inclusive because I don't have so much self-obsession about my own self. I can actually think about other people's needs beyond my own. So, oh, thank you. I think she's clapping at the teenager. So, do you relate to this? This is me at work on my computer, emailing the person next to me, not taking a lunch break, leading by example. Or maybe you relate to this, the person not taking lunch, not drinking, needing to pee and not going to the toilet, constantly dehydrated like I am in this moment. Can that person really be an example of leadership? I don't think so. But I have a solution. I know that we're all depressed, our agencies are depressed, but things can change today because each of us are responsible for ourselves. When I point the finger, there is 3 pointing back at me. So every time I blame someone else, I blame my boss, I blame my boyfriend, or if I'm gender neutral, I blame, I don't know. But if I'm blaming everyone else and not taking responsibility for myself, then I don't need to change. So when I realize that today I can make different choices to be different, then actually change will happen because I stop not trying to, hand the blame over, but actually think, let's do something different today. So, here are my top 3 changes we can make today within us to help transform our future. I want you to know I had 10, but I have a 7-minute sort of time limit, so I'm just going to give you my top 3. Because I believe if we can start to do this, then we can try and be better leaders and lead by example. So, firstly, I need to accept this. This is me when I'm not practicing self-care and I've had a lot of sugar. I look fucking crazy. This is the moment I say to my boyfriend at 12 o'clock at night, are we gonna get married and what's our future? This person is not a good manager. So I need to know when she comes out, what can I do to bring myself back into the moment, look after me so I can look after others. Step 1, halt. Halt means hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If I'm any of these, I need to stop and practice self-care. I'm going to give you some examples of what each of them mean. Hungry. I refer to this as hangry. Hungry, angry. If I'm that, it means I should be eating lunch and I should probably stop and eat some food. Because if I'm getting angry and I can't explain why, then I'm probably hungry. Also, I try and take lunch every day between 1 and 2 because when I set my own boundaries, then the people around me start to respect my boundaries because they get used to my routine. If I'm dehydrated at my desk, writing 300 emails, get up and have a drink. Find a way to bring water into your normal routine. Angry, the inner negator. That is what I have inside of me that tells me I'm shit. I have one of them talking to me right now, trying to distract me, as me and Hannah talked about earlier, but I'm not going to listen to that because it's so easy to have this negator that tells you you're not good enough. And then you have other people's negators you need to battle. Now that is hard. So what I do when it's my negator or someone else's negator, I take a walk, I breathe, I watch a little cat gif to make myself laugh, I make a herbal tea, and I realize that someone else's resentment or my resentment of someone else doesn't have to weigh me down. It's like a big backpack of resentment. And I have to realize when I'm starting to do this and starting to go downhill, and as I said, take responsibility for myself. Something I say to myself is, what is it? What can I do? No. What is it? How do I feel? And what can I do? So again, what is it? How do I feel? And what can I do? And when I ask myself those questions, I can help bring myself out of that resentment. Lonely. Now, I know many of us don't want to admit we're lonely. I bet they have to turn my mic down because I'm really loud. Anyway, lonely. So loneliness. Now, some of you might think, how can I be lonely? But the thing is that loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about thinking that you need other people to make you feel whole and to make you not feel lonely. And when I can realize that I can meet my own needs, I feel better. And when I can meet my needs, I can meet other people's needs. So I'm not telling you to, never be alone and always deal with it yourself. To deal with it yourself when you're alone. I'm just saying that sometimes we have to rethink about what loneliness means. For example, take yourself on a date. That's a great way to not feel lonely. I'm not saying in the workday, take a long walk on the beach, but what I'm saying is do something nice for yourself, something validating, something that reaffirms you and makes you feel whole. For example, get a desk plant. I have a succulent, they won't die. Buy your department some flowers, put it on your desk, because that not only helps you, but sends out a good vibe for everyone else. Make a round of tea, or get yourself a tea when you're feeling a little bit stressed when that email comes in with that feedback that you don't like. And lastly, tiredness. Check your Fitbit. I know for me, like a teenager, I need at least 8 hours sleep. When I don't have that 8 hours sleep, I'm a little, cortisol levels. So what I do is try not to take myself too seriously and realize during the week, often I don't get the amount of sleep I need like I do on the weekend. And that's okay. I just need to remember that I'm not always working at 100% and just try and look after me in the day-to-day. And also, to try and make sure I am getting enough sleep, I try not to check my email at 10 o'clock at night, because when I re-stimulate my brain and start to read emails to do with work or ask my boyfriend when we're going to get married, then my cortisone levels go crazy, and therefore I can't sleep because my brain is overstimulated. Next, I know you thought I'd never move on from 1, but here we are on 2, and I promise they're not as long. So, number 2, values. When I think about who are you after your 9 to 5, so that is, who am I before work and after work? I know that if I bring who I am outside of work into work, I feel better. If I can find ways to align my values with my day job, then I feel better. I feel more passionate. I feel more inspired. So it doesn't mean that I just do my day job, but I also try and find ways to bring me into work. For example, by creating different social change programs like Equal Lens. Because by trying to encourage more gender equality in photography, I feel better, and that encourages more diversity and more inclusion. And when I signed up for the scheme and put myself out there in a vulnerable place to be part of See It, Be It, I felt better, because being part of the See It, Be It program gave me a voice like today, where I could share my views that are beyond just my everyday work as a producer. And by doing these, I enjoy my day job better, and I feel better about myself, and therefore I can lead and inspire others and create all those things that the girls were talking about. And also, experiences like this lead to selfies with Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. Hello, Instagram-worthy moment. That's Hannah with her, and I'm up here, my head's chopped off. That's all of us See It, Be It girls, and that was an absolute highlight. Not only because it's Sheryl, but because she was wearing the Facebook blue dress. So, number 3, as Barbara mentioned, you know, when do we actually talk to our colleagues beyond just our everyday work? How often does a colleague come over and you're like, I'm too busy, you know, I can't talk right now. And that's a missed opportunity with someone. Or, you know, you're typing away, oh, put in a meeting, or let's talk about it after lunch. Or we're in our little cafe, or you're in your kitchen and you're making your tea and you see your colleagues walking past and you don't talk to them. How many times do we have missed opportunities with people who might be able to change our life? And I think that maybe sometimes if I can ask one of my colleagues, how do you really feel today? Or what inspires you? Or what did you do this weekend? Who knows, it might transform my day and refocus me and bring me out of that negator space. Because when I ask someone else how they are, I feel better. So this wouldn't have made the presentation if I hadn't taken this risk, or this person hadn't felt the fear and done it anyway by saying, let's have lunch. There's this new guy at AMV BBDO called Raj. He's very senior. I actually didn't realize how senior he was, or else maybe I wouldn't have said yes to lunch. But we did this sort of course together. We got chatting after, just like two human beings. You know, just because someone's human, just because someone's senior doesn't mean they're human. Wait, just because that does make sense. Anyway, but what I'm saying is, if I sort of had second guessed, you know, who this person was or his role in the agency, I might not have said, let's have lunch. Anyway, so we had lunch and we had a chat, and he told me this quote. This quote's by Steve Jobs, paraphrased by Raj at AMV BBDO. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect your future. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, I'll let you take a photo. Steve Jobs is very insightful, and I watched his sort of speech this weekend, the 15-minute one he did to Stanford, and it actually made me cry, which I was quite surprised about. And when he talked about this, you know, it's about we have highs and lows in life, and these are all the sort of dots that sort of shape and make us. And at the time, we can't understand why we're in this low or why we're in this high, but once they connect together, it shows us what shapes us and made us grow who we are and who we've become today. And I just found that really powerful. So if I hadn't taken that time to have lunch, I wouldn't have realized the meaning of life. And so that's why I just say, feel the fear and do it anyway. Ask someone you inspire, you know, for 5 minutes. You could even mentor someone for 5 minutes and they don't even know you're mentoring them. We can have cheerleaders amongst our agency and I can cheerlead other people and they don't even need to know it. But all these little times when we just treat each other like humans, it makes our day-to-day and our agencies a better place to be. So, today, I've chatted to you a little bit about self-care and what we can do. Ultimately, if we laugh, if we exercise, if we feel the fear and do it anyway, if we look at our values, if we talk and connect, if we sometimes, you know, tell someone how I really am and really authentically feeling. I can't remember the first thing I said now, halt. If we remember to halt when we're not in self-care and when we're in craziness, just maybe today could be a different place. And industry is the sum of everyone in it. Today, I choose to do something different. Today, Today, we've talked to you about leadership. We've talked to you about collaboration. We've talked to you about inclusion, whether that's cultural diversity or however that means, whatever that means to you. And I've talked to you about self-care, and I hope that something we've shared today can make a difference. But ultimately, these are just our experiences, our personal experiences and our agency experiences. But hopefully something you've heard today could become a building block or maybe the foundation for the agencies we all want together for the future. Thank you.